KoitCast!
Hi, Derrel. Welcome to KoitCast.
I'm delighted to be here.
I'm delighted to have you on, so thank you ever so much for coming.
It's my first time of being in the UK without actually being there physically.
Oh, you've been to the UK, have you?
Oh, I went to the UK back in the 90s, I think 5 times in 2 months.
What were you visiting? Stonehenge, I presume.
Well, we're doing that, but more than anything, I was speaking a lot of conferences
I
back in the
gotcha.
90s there. Yes.
Awesome. Well, excellent. Can you give the listeners and the watchers a brief introduction to yourself and in your own words, who are you, where are you from?
Yeah, well, at present, I'm referred to by some in the uninformed as a world-class UFO investigator. I'm a senior military police officer during the Vietnam War, and I was sheet dipped or put into the Central Intelligence Agency during my military tour as well. I've conducted 27 surgical interventions from India to the United States. Those surgeries have netted what is referred to as alleged alien implants. The National Institute for Discovery Science, Royal Society of Chemical Engineers in your country, and other universities and places have been very interested in our work. In fact, one top doctor in the world called this morning at 7:30 this morning to try. Not only am I busy until noon, which is this program.
Because of this, yeah. Sorry.
that was interesting. And anyway, the bottom line is that that's my background, generally speaking, in the UFO world. And as far as my interest in the UFO world itself, I was a captive audience when I was 4 years old, as in an abduction phenomenon.
Whoa. And I always like to ask that of my guests, what were their paranormal introduction, or what I like to call the nudge theory. Yours may be this huge nudge. I know you've probably been over this many, thousands of times, but would you mind just letting me know what that scenario was for you?
Well, it's actually quite simple. I was at 4 years old in 1952, kind of dating myself here a little bit. And this is some of your people in your audience are going to be very well versed in knowing a lot of this, and some are not. So I'm going to try to bridge the gap if I can. I didn't wake up with an alien waking me up or something like that in the room. It came through the wall, and I didn't know at the time. It just brought me back and put me in bed, so I was not supposed to remember. The problem is I switched on for some reason. I didn't wake up. I was switched on, and I'll get into that in a moment, why that's important. So the bottom line is that I'm looking at him and I realize, who is this guy? How did he get in my room? And all these bizarre things came into my mind, like he had large black eyes, a small head. I'm 4 years old. He's about a little bit bigger than me. And I'm sitting up in bed looking at him, and it's freezing cold out in the winter in Midland, Texas. And he hasn't got any clothes on. Children see things differently than adults. Adult might say, my goodness, that's probably an alien from Zoltar or something. Kids don't think stuff like that. They like, where are your clothes? It's freezing. I've got quilts on and I'm freezing. And I can't figure this out. He's not saying anything. He's looking at me like there's something wrong with me. I'm not supposed to be awake. And I keep looking at him, and I started. His eyes are very round. They're perfectly round. They're not like the TV version of the alien with the elliptical eyes. They were perfectly round. The models back then probably were different than they are now, and I'll get into that later. But the bottom line is that as I looked from his eyes to his nose, he had two little pinholes for a nose, slit for a mouth, no ears whatsoever. He didn't have any mammary glands of any kind. He had no belly button. And as I went down further looking, I realized he didn't have a TT.
Mm,
So it took me years to figure out, after thinking about this, if he doesn't have a belly button, he probably wasn't born.
exactly. Not biological, literally.
He's made, hatched, cloned, or manufactured. And the second thing that I later figured out, that if he didn't have a genitalia, he didn't procreate. So the question, if through my mind later, was, what is this thing? How did it get my? Why is he here? And the next thing I noticed, I heard this voice in my head, which was really unusual. I'd never heard a voice in my head before, other than me talking.
Mm,
And the voice said, "It's awake." And I realized two things about that. Number one, there's only two people in the room that I can see, and so he's talking. The it has got to be me. And the second thing is that he's talking to someone else besides me. Now, that the reason that's important in this particular case, and I'm spending so much time on that, is there is a process that happened that has never happened that I know about in any other UFO event. And I've interviewed tens of thousands of people over 50 years. And for your audience, there was an event that happened. It's called hot mic. A hot mic is whenever, like a president or someone's not supposed to be talking, like Barack Obama one day was talking to Putin, and they didn't know they were being hot mic'd, and Barack Obama told him, "So we'll take care of that when I get reelected. I'll fix that for you." And of course, he was horrified that that went on national TV. Well, something happened in my event that allowed me to hot mic the alien there, and I'm still looking at how that may have happened, but it happened for the rest of my time, and it's for 13 years in my further abductions. The hot mic means this to the audience: I can overhear what he's saying, even though he tells me, "You won't remember," or "You pay it, focus on this," or whatever. I'm hearing what they're talking about. The other guy is talking about with him. They don't know that I can overhear their conversation. That's the point. Now, why is
yes.
that important? Well, what they say and what they do is two entirely different things. And that's when people say, "I know their agenda because they told me they're from planet Zoltar, or they're from whatever it is." No, that's just what he told you. That doesn't mean it's true at all. The question is, can you hear what he's talking about with the other person who's telling him what to say? Now, that's really important. Like I said, what the President Obama at the time was saying to Putin was far more important than what they were telling everybody on television. So that
Of
wasn't
course.
exactly the whole story. So that's the issue with this. And that happened to me for 13 years. I had about 10 events that continued till I was 17 years old. And I could still hot mic them. And I'll put a cap on this thing. We went out about 15 years ago trying to lay a trap for the alien, one of my techniques of doing alien hunting. And they finally came. We had 7 investigators. They're all sleeping at night, of course. And the alien finally showed up on the very last night we were there. And numerous people knew about it and had an effect with them that had never seen or been involved with an alien anything for a long time. My point is that I could actually access the alien that was standing outside my tent. I could see the shadow of him outside. And rather than do what I was going to do, which is a little unpleasant, I decided not to catch him, but rather to see if I could still hot mic him, since that hadn't happened since I was 17 years old. And I could. I was absolutely amazed that I could still had that ability. That was very important for me as an investigator to see if it still worked or not.
Okay, so that hot micing, right? As a process, were you allowed to be hot mic'd, or was it an ability that you, in your architecture of your brain, somehow left open? What have you
Well,
thought about that
I
across
would
the
love to
years?
say it's because of my superior intelligence that there was
Yeah,
no question
of
I
course.
was able to do that. That just simply isn't true, clearly. The fact you're laughing again.
Yeah.
Put him on hot mic too.
You can't hear what's in here.
Really, the fact is that we don't know exactly what that ultimately what that process is or was. We can only guess and suspect. But in my neurology, somehow I was able to, and it's clearly accidental. It was nothing planned on my part. I had no idea about anything at 4 years old, but I could clearly hear what they were saying and versus what he was telling me. He was telling me one thing, but I can hear over here, so to speak, what the other ones in the room that often in abduction experiences, people say there's three of them around the table where I'm at or whatever, but they don't. I always ask the question when I'm working with them: is there anyone else in the room? And they'll say no, and I said, is there anyone in the room you can't see? Oh yeah, it's the guy over there. He's over there hiding behind that wall. And it's
Mm.
the question is why are others in the room and what are they doing? What's really going on? So this, as an investigator, is extremely important to me. But that's all I know about the hot micing. The main thing to me is that it works and it still works.
Well, of course, that's an amazing thing to hear and know about. Obviously, as part of your investigations, have you come across anyone else that has this ability?
Never met another person, and I didn't tell anybody about this for a long time. And my purpose of not telling them this quite is because I wanted the the problem is when you tell people things, then everybody said, "Oh yeah, me too."
Yes.
Good investigators want to investigate murder cases, as an example. As a police officer, you don't give all the details on TV when you're looking for the killer. Because one guy, the true story, he said, "I was the one that stabbed that woman 17 times." How'd you do it? Well, I did it with a knife. What size was the knife? And they tell you the size of the knife because they didn't tell you that. And, are you left or right-handed? Oh, well, I'm right-handed and I stabbed her 17 times. It's like you said on TV. And I used this really big knife. Well, it was a small knife. We didn't tell them that. And the fact is, it was a left-handed person that did it. That's why you don't tell the rest of the story. And some people get irritated with UFO investigators who don't give all the information out. It really bothers them. And I tell them it's not meant to be obtrusive or a problem to you. It's just some of the methods that we use to find out things, and it's
Exactly.
not
That's
meant to
all it
be
is, isn't
awful.
it? It's a technique to help you get to the
Yes.
truth behind the scenes. And I've got no issue with that whatsoever, and nor should people. Obviously, if it's real obfuscation, that's a different story. But in this case, it's not. I understand.
Yes.
So, your experiences when you were 4 through to 17, did it stop then completely?
The experiences did not stop. What happened? Well, let me finish this up.
Okay, sure.
That event. The important thing about the event, besides the hot miking, was at that moment when he realized he was having a problem controlling me, and that's really important in these abduction phenomena. Most people don't know they're being completely hoodwinked, controlled, manipulated, whatever you want to call it. And then he decided to use the screen memory technique. That was when he all of a sudden my imagery in my head of him was that of a clown, a red haired, white face, horrible, horrific looking clown. And many abductees have clown phobias and have no idea where they came from. And I kept shaking my little head back and forth. No, 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 no. And I kept interrupting his pattern. And it worked because I wanted to remember him for what he was, not the clown that he wanted me to think he was. Because I knew that was going to be something like, well, you just had a bad dream, little boy. And that's exactly what my parents said the next morning. You've had a terrible dream and we're going to help you out here. So the important thing is that you can break a screen memory. You can interrupt what they're doing. They're not all powerful. They're not gods. They're not anything like what people imagine. And they make huge mistakes. Sometimes they put your clothes on inside out or backwards. I mean, you don't normally go to bed with your clothing on backwards, your pajamas or whatever. And these are telltale signs that something seriously is wrong. Something happened last night, and I need to find out what it was.
It begs the question with that, right? Because it comes up quite a lot, doesn't it? The old clothes back on incorrectly. Why are they so crap at doing it?
Well, this may get me in a little bit of trouble, but I have a different view about aliens than other people do, and it's only based on 50 years research and some DNA and other kinds of evidence that we've looked at that people probably are not familiar with. The the gray alien. Okay, let me really simplify this for those that are brand new to the audience. If you go to a car company, like in the United States, you see a Chevette, a Chevy Chevette, little tiny, the lowest end car they have that people want to buy because they just can't afford it. And then you got the Corvette Stingray over here. Wow, $150,000, you can have this thing. So which one is the alien? Well, the little gray alien is the Chevette. The Nordic, or the Mantis being, is the Corvette Stingray. They're a lot smarter. They call a lot of the shots. Little gray alien doesn't control anything. He just does what he's told. I call him the cosmic pizza delivery guy. He delivers you, he picks you up, and you're the pizza, and he delivers you to whoever wants you.
You don't have to give him a tip, though, do you? He doesn't deserve a tip.
No, he never gets a tip from me, and I don't like being served with other kinds of things. No, I got just a bad joke. So the bottom line is that and a lot of people take offense when I say this. The gray alien has an IQ of about 80 at best. He makes huge mistakes. He gets your clothes on inside and out, puts you in the wrong bed sometimes. You wake up on the couch when you went to sleep in the bed, or in rare cases, you end up outside your house and not inside your house. You say, well, that could have had no. When a person has a double tumbler lock, which means they have to have a key to get in and a key to get out, and your keys are inside your house and you're outside the house, laying out in the yard, may be cause to think that something happened. That's not sleepwalking.
No, something is slightly awry there. Yeah.
We even have cases where people were driving down the road, got abducted, two people at a time, engineers, and they woke up in a wrong state. They were in Colorado and ended up in Dalhart, Texas when they opened their eyes, and are driving down the road and the wrong guy's driving the car.
Yeah, that's weird. Proper weird.
So we're pretty confident in when we make a statement, we're pretty confident that if we don't know, we'll tell you that this is what we think, and if we do know, we'll tell you this is what we do know, and here's why. So hopefully that will clear up some things. But the gray alien is the late Bud Hopkins asked me one time, "Why do you say the gray alien is stupid?" I said, "I never said that, Bud." I said, "He is of very low intelligence." "Well, how do you know that?" I said, "Bud, have you ever met any smart people in your life?" "Yeah, lots of them." I said, "Okay. Have you ever met any stupid people in your life?" He said, "Yeah, I met a few of those." And I said, "How'd you know? Did you give them an IQ test? And can't you figure that out by watching their linguistics and watching them?" I said, "It's fairly easy to figure out." I said, "If somebody can't even get your clothes on right whenever they're reclothing you, or like a little girl, one of our abductees, a little tiny girl, just a little tiny thing." And there was a second person that was abducted at the same time, a guy in the military. They put the Army guy's field jacket on the little girl and sent her home. And of course, you can imagine a little tiny T-shirt.
Yeah.
He was going to have to wear it back to the base. Yeah, that didn't work out very well.
You look like the Hulk, yeah, and the ripped stuff.
Exactly. They make mistakes, is my point.
Oh, silly.
They do.
Yeah, wow. That is beyond comprehension, really, because if they're doing this subterfuge of trying to make as if nothing happened, why leave these clues? And you'd think the people in charge, or the entities in charge of the lower beings, would say, "Come on, sort that out." What's all that about?
You're making you're thinking like a like a good host. The fact is that the beings are created, hatched, cloned, made, manufactured. The alien, as we know them, 7 different types. The little gray, the taller gray, which is a lot smarter than you. The taller gray is, if there's going to be an implant, he's what's going to do it. He's got an IQ about should be 135 to 140. Then you got a reptile being, you've got a Nordic being, and you've got a Bigfoot. And there's 7 primary guys that show up in these phenomena. People say, well, those are just 7 different races of beings. No, there's 7 models of cars in the same car lot. Just because you can't put it together, they don't want you to. They want you to think there's 7 species from another world. The problem is, if you look at the DNA of each person, each one, and I'll start with Bigfoot. Bigfoot was studied by Dr. Melba Ketchum and her people here in Texas, actually, in Nacogdoches, Texas. And I offered to send them some of my DNA samples I've had since the 1980s. And they said they had plenty. I said, fine. So they did their study, and they found, of course, he's a simian. That's an ape-like creature. No amazing discovery there. That was his nuclear DNA. The mitochondrial, or the female DNA, showed that it was modern human woman. How do you get a modern human woman in a Bigfoot? That's called a transgenic being. That's something that's made, hatched, cloned, or manufactured. Somebody did that on purpose.
And then it begs the question, why in that model? Why that variety?
Now to answer that question, we need a whole new hour or 2 program.
Yeah,
I can go into that, but the bottom line is that to go to the next one, and people say, well, the Nordics they're so beautiful, those large, beautiful blue eyes, and they're so wonderful. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. Where do you think you get Nordic DNA? Let's take a wild guess. Norway?
Yeah, you'd argue that, wouldn't you?
Really?
Yeah.
And I said, so my point is that where do you think you get reptile DNA? Probably from planet Earth. We are literally the Walmart of DNA. You get hundreds of species of DNA of praying mantises all over Earth, or reptiles. Not a problem. Looks like most of the DNA comes from here, is my point. It's kind of obvious. And when I talk to my Native American buddies, here I'm Native myself and Scottish, and anyway, I asked my friend. He passed away here a while back. He's a medicine man. Anyway, he says, I said, tell me where the gray alien came from. He looks at me and says, in the old broken Native American tongue, well, you see, they come from the star. These are the star people. I said, don't feed me that bunch of crap. That's what you tell white people. Don't talk to me like I'm not native. He said, oh, they come from the inner earth. I said, thank you. Thank you. Still planet Earth. Interesting. Fascinating stuff.
It is fascinating. Why? I'd have to ask the question again. Why the need to separate out based on who you're talking to, where they come from?
Once again, please.
Well, from that friend of yours, his perspective, he told you one story based on, let's just say, that's white people or others. Why that versus just say what it is from the inner earth? Why not say that?
Well, this is going to sound awful.
It's okay.
I'm kind of telling on some of my friends here, but this happens. White people think that anything an Indian says is like the gospel truth. It came right out of the Bible. They would never lie. Well, I wouldn't use the word lie, just say stretch it a little bit. What sells Indians real well is that we know the secrets. Our grandfather told me the following. That works real well with white folks. When you sit there and answer the question like they come from inner earth, that stretches the imagination a little bit, and a lot of scientists don't want to hear that. They want to hear it came from outer space, if anywhere.
Yeah, but I don't like that. I don't know if you do. I just want to get us directly to the truth, and I know that's why you said exactly what you said. Yeah,
it's exactly right.
Yeah, wow. And I like that premise then, right? That the models themselves, they're not a mantis being per se, a species of mantis that came here, and by the way, there's also a mantis here, which you then start thinking about that. They're not all ones coming from different places. They're here made from the DNA that's here to create that car, essentially, that vehicle.
One thing I can add here, I'm not trying to make a breakaway into other subjects. I'm going to stay with the order here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in the CIA, there's a thing called a tradecraft. Tradecraft are the skills that you use to learn how to be a spy and to do all kinds of how to spy, basically
Mm-hmm.
on everybody. Everybody does it. The Mossad, MI5, CIA, everybody does it. KGB, everybody. They have their own tradecraft. Well, when I learned my part of the tradecraft when I was in the Central Intelligence Agency, I took that skills with me. And I realized that one of these days, as I got older, and decided to get more into this phenomenon, we're kind of at a huge disadvantage. The alien's not going to answer any question to you truthfully. I mean, they're going to show you a clown face or something. That's not who he is. That's not where he came from. So why the subterfuge? Why lie? Why are you covering things up? So that anytime I found that in the CIA or in police work, somebody's covering up a crime. That's just the truth of it. It's called a cover story. We call it lying in police work, but in the CIA, we developed a cover story like Roswell. It was a weather balloon is what it was. We have proof. Look at this weather balloon over here. So it's a lie. It's a cover story. So that's extremely important. So I developed a system that I wanted to try, and I'll make this as short as possible because you could spend a whole show on this one subject. I applied to tradecraft and got a volunteer who was a contactee, and contactees and abductees are different. Contactees are people who feel like that their contact event was probably very positive, and whoever they are, they're bigger and better than us. Kind of like what the American Indians and South American Indians thought of the Portuguese when they showed up in those boats with guns. They're bigger and they have stuff we don't have. They have craft, they have all this stuff. So therefore, they must be smarter. So they're going to help us out here. No, you're going to end up a slave or assimilated or exterminated. And every scientist will tell you that. Every advanced civilization does that. They all do it. Everybody does it. So I decided to develop this program with this lady, and she was a contactee. She's not like me. I'm an abductee. Abductee means you feel like you were kidnapped without your permission. And that's exactly what happened. What happened to my son as well. So I'd use a contactee because everybody was always going to say, well, you chose an abductee because they are of the same mentality. I said, no, I'm an investigator. My viewpoints don't mean anything. Only the evidence means anything. So I used her, and she agreed to the whole thing. And long story short is the program worked. I had found information in one abductee that, in my opinion, was so damning to the alien phenomena. If it were true, I didn't know if it was true. I didn't know. I just thought, well, maybe he hot mic'd and didn't know it and overheard some of this stuff. And when I worked with him, it just came out. So I took that information, put it in her brain as if it were a memory. Okay. And when she got in front of the alien, she blurted it out when she got abducted a month later. And she said, that's the first time I've ever seen him scared. I said, what are you talking about? She said, I've been abducted. I'm 33 years old. I've been abducted since 3. And said, I've never seen an emotion on their face ever. She said, he was alarmed when I said whatever I said. And she said, what did I say? I said, I put a block in there so you couldn't remember because I don't want you to know. I don't want them to know where it comes from, so to speak. So long story short, she and 7 other people got picked up in a mass abduction a month later, December 8th and December 11th, 1992. And they all were taken by separate craft to a huge craft in space next to the moon, Well, you say, yeah, that's what they said. That don't mean anything. It's just a story. No, we actually have someone who showed us film footage of the moon during the time of the mass abduction this time. And they were filming a massive craft beside the moon. But our engineer who was taken as well on that event said it was approximately 50 miles thick and 600 miles across.
Jesus.
My response to him, I said, you don't really need to be from planet Zoltar, do you? If you've got your own planet, you're dragging around with you. And if you're an alien, you don't need a planet anyway. That's not even the point. You plug in, so to speak, or something else. You don't use what we do. Anyway. They're not like us. So that caused a small stir, you can imagine, no small stir with the alien, and two beings that I refer to as mid-level management. These are not the regular alien at all. They're sitting in a big chair in two different rooms, and they've got the lady I work with in one room, and they got Dale, my senior investigator, in the other room, because if you want to find out what Derrel's up to, get a senior investigator, get the lady he worked with, get the whole story. The problem is that the guy sitting in the chair, everybody out there, all seven of the so-called aliens, or my car lot of aliens I call, they're all standing in line in front of this guy sitting in the big chair. Dale's in front of him like at a trial, so to speak. And he wants to know, he looks at Dale and says, why did he do it? And Dale said, instantly, all the information about you was immediately available in my headspace. And he said, at that point, he said, I realized you had done something to them. You leaked all kinds of information out, and they wanted to know where you got it. And I didn't know. He said, why didn't you tell me? And I said, Dale, you would have told them. He said, of course I would have. I said, that's why you're an abductee. And I don't tell abductees stuff like it. You'll tell everybody. I'm running an op here. You're interfering. I said, I didn't.
I like that idea, though, Derrel, of this Trojan horse, if you will, hypnotic virus going into them to like shit them up a bit. I like that.
Well, it made the guy in the chair, when Dale said, I don't know, the guy in the chair got really angry, and everybody was literally shaking on the behind Dale, the seven there, because they did not. They were afraid, and they did not know what he was going to do. He's in charge. The alien lives in a society nothing like ours. It's enormous trepidation and fear, and authority means everything to them. And the little gray alien's on the bottom of the totem pole, so to speak. So he's going to get hurt first if there's going to be anybody get it, if he's responsible. Finally, the Nordic, 6'6" Nordic, walks over to Dale, and Dale's 6'2", and he puts his forehead on Dale's forehead, puts his hands on both sides of his head, looks deep into Dale's consciousness, and looks back at the big guy sitting in the chair, and says he doesn't know. And then the guy realized at that point that he actually didn't. He wasn't lying. But the question is, why didn't the big guy know? I thought aliens knew everything. They got to know everything. I mean, they must know everything, but they don't. And these are miscalculations we give to the alien because we think they're so smart. Everybody, I'll give a prime example here.
Mm-hmm.
People always say and I get this all the time at conferences, Derrel, you're so wrong about that. They're advanced, they're beyond us. Well, tell me why. So all you have to do is look at their spacecraft. I said, sweetie, if the alien only has 3 or 4 fingers and no opposing thumb, how do you build anything without an opposing thumb? And if you've got an IQ that's about 80, don't you get it? Somebody made it for him. He's just the Uber driver. He's a taxi cab guy. That's it. So he says,
"Go on, you carry on."
Well, the bottom line is, if we could wake up a caveman that was frozen in the tundra, and thawed him out, and the salt in his blood didn't crystallize or anything, he lived. I could take him to my house. The very first thing he'd look at the house and say, "Oh, you built a cave outside of a cave. That's incredible. Yeah, that's really neat." And open the door. And ding dong, here's these little bells. What is that? Oh, this is strange. I turn the light off, flip a switch, turn the light on. He's, "Oh, look, the sun. You have a little sun inside your house. Oh, this is incredible. Yeah, I'm brilliant. All I got to do is say I'm from planet Soltar. And I'm from the future. You don't understand anything about us. I'm so advanced." And take him over to my microwave and cook him some toast, hand him some toast. "Oh, a fire without fire. This is amazing. It's incredible." Yeah, so we're so superior. You know how we are. We're just way out there.
Well, I'd say this, Derrel. Never cook toast in a microwave. That's awful stuff.
Well, hey, he doesn't know.
True. Yeah, you would essentially be a god to that person, so I get it. It's all perspective. Yeah. Yeah.
So the last thing to do is plug in the movie 1 million BC in my old VCR and put it on TV and show him all these dinosaurs and things back like when he lived.
He goes, "Oh, Raquel Welsh."
You see that one over there? That the cave guy way back there in the back. You hardly see, that's you. We went back in time, and that's you. You believe every word of that? He thinks that's a time machine. It's called a television. The telly is what that is. That's not a time machine.
Yes, it's just technology that's misrepresented essentially in our minds.
That's all that's happening with us.
Yeah,
they're doing the same thing to us. We're the caveman.
I agree on that. By the way, this technique of implanting a reverse hypnotic suggestion to come out at the right time, have you used that quite a lot?
We've used it. Great question, Koit. Great question. To better answer that, I was at the biggest conference in the world. I think it's called a Contact in the Desert, and they put me on a scientific panel next to Dr. Targ, who was in his younger years was a top remote viewer for the Central Intelligence Agency, and he told two stories. One of them was really remarkable, and 5,000 people in the audience, and I promise you, they did not want to hear what he just said. He said, "Well, we remote viewed a UFO one time, and there were a bunch of dead human beings on it." Nobody wanted to hear that. They want to hear how well you're being treated and you're being educated in the planetary involvement and so on. That's not what he said. Everybody in the room just didn't say a word. And I looked at him, and when they said, "Now, Derrel, would you like to comment about Dr. Targ's statement?" I said, "Well," I said, "Dr. Targ," I said, "I'm not a remote viewer. I do not have the acumen that you do in that field." I said, "Being the alien hunter," I said, "I use techniques that are far different. And having been in the CIA like you," I said, "I have my own tradecraft as well." I said, "What I do, I call them literally my pilots. These are people who are going to get abducted, and I've already pre-qualified them. They're a rare few people, and they can withstand the aliens' mind control techniques because I've trained them. And when they go there, they get abducted like normal, and then I switch them on. They stay abducted mentally to the alien, then they can walk around the craft, do all kinds of things, and tell me everything I want to know about the craft or whatever I need to know. And when they come back, that's when I work with them. And so the alien doesn't know that. But we made one mistake. One guy got freaked out. True story, hand of God. He walked into this room, a huge craft, and there were 300 tanks or so. They looked like they were filled with milk. He said, "I don't know what they were." He said, "But the craft shook," and he said, "One of the bodies fell over and hit the side of the tank. You could see the face of the human being in it." He said, at that point, he freaked out. And then when he did, that breaks the consciousness. The alien knows he's awake. And then where you're even at. And they came and got him, and they tried to convince him that he betrayed them and he was no good and all horrible things. Needless to say, I can no longer use him for the program because they broke him.
Yeah.
So
he's been discovered. Yeah.
The point is that dead people, I told Dr. Targ, I said, we can verify from our experience that dead people do show up on those crafts, and they appear in some very unusual circumstances.
That human or whatever it was in the tank that went over and you could see it was a human face, do we know it was a dead body versus a cloning scenario?
Well, that's who knows? I mean, we
Hmm.
don't know because I didn't get all my information because my guy screwed up. He he,
Swine.
he got scared on me.
Yeah.
Most people would.
Yeah, it's very freaky, but I like the technique, and I'd love to see more about that. Have you got like somewhere online a repository of it, or like a YouTube video or anything that I could go and watch?
No,
Okay,
I
all right,
that okay. I keep a lot of that stuff quiet because
fair enough.
our work is not secretive. It is private, but not secretive. And the you're it's rare that I ever mention these things, and so you're a privileged person in my opinion, and your audience to hear that. But I want you to know that the alien is not untouchable. They are touchable. They are reachable, and as we are. The reason I told Bud Hopkins years ago, I said the reason you're so easy to abduct is because you have habits. If you didn't have habits, I said you'd be hard to find and locate and so on. I said the Rocky Mountain sheep doesn't have habits. They're almost impossible to find or catch. You have to wait, watch, and see one if you're going to hunt them. But you're not going to find him going to the same place every day, doing whatever, like you going to the store to get food. They don't do that. So that's a tremendous thing. I said, when you're hunting the alien, you need to not use habits.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And then that brings me to, I know I'm going to jump slightly ahead on what I had planned, but about the implant side of things, is that something that they do to us to track us? Therefore, we can be predictable based on that fact that they know where we are, sort of thing.
Well, now that's fascinating because uh, the implant phenomena is. I want to clear something up for the audience here. This is kind of a big deal for me. Um, the uh, the alien implant is not the best way to say this without again it would take 3 shows for us to get this out. Alien implants are not tracking devices.
Okay.
They are not transponders. In fact, the first person I ever told that to was Stanton Friedman. He and I were on a radio program together, and he said, the host said, "Well, the alien implants, those are tracking devices." And Stanton said, "Well, I don't know what they are." He said, "Derrel's the one that discovered it. I don't know." He said, "Maybe they're a transponder." I said, "Well, with respect, Stanton, the they're not transponders and they're not tracking devices." And he says, and the host looked at me and said, "Well, then what are, how do you know that?" And I said, "Well, first of all, I said, the alien already knows where you are. He didn't need to, when they came after me, they knew where I was, the exact location, every detail. They knew my family lineage. 45% of the people taken in these events are Native American, Indian, Irish, Celtic, and more, but those are the big ones. 45%. When I went to Turkey and did my presentation there, they said, "Well, you're right about everything. We love your work, except you're wrong about the Turks are not Native American." I said, "Yes, you are." I said, "Don't presume to know just because you're Turk that you know everything about Turks there is to know." And then one of their scientists at a university did Native American studies DNA wise and took the DNA back to Turkey and tested all the Turks, the major nationalities of body kinds of people in Turkey, and found out they were Native American too. And they said, "Oh, you're right." So I said, "Don't question me about stuff like that. You don't know what you're talking about. You're making an opinion about your nationality. I don't care about nationality. I care about the results, the evidence." And the fact is, I said, if you look at Native Americans, you'll find some of them, particularly Cherokee, had turbans on their head in the 17th century. Where do you think they got the turbans?
Mm, I like this.
I
I
said,
like
"I'm
this a
telling you,
lot.
you don't know what you're talking about." I said, don't try to presume. Just if you talk to me about stuff like that, you better know what you're talking about." So these objects are not tracking devices, and then of course people say, "Well, you know what? I've been chipped." I said, "No, you haven't." "Yes, I have." "No, you haven't." "Yes, I have." "No, you haven't." "Show me your chip." "Well, I'm sure I have because I got this bump on my arm." "I got a bump on my arm too, but I haven't been. There's no chip in there. Well, and I've operated on with my crew of doctors because I'm not an MD. I don't do the surgery. I conduct it because the doctor doesn't know what to do when he sees this thing in there. What is that? What do I do? And I'll tell him where to cut, how much to cut, what we need out of that because he doesn't have a clue. He's a mechanic and a good one.
Mm.
He's a mechanic about the body, but he doesn't know what it is we're looking at here. Had a brain surgeon and a cardiovascular surgeon both working on one case, and they said, "What is that?" And I said, "It's not even an implant." They said, "Well, it looks really weird. It's triangular shape with a dot in the middle." I said, "That's probably a cyst in the middle of the triangular shape." The triangular shape. I said, "The man's a mechanic. He is an abductee, no question about it, but that's not an implant." I said, "He thinks it is, but he's not going to want to hear that, not want to hear this, but it's not an implant." I said, "He's a mechanic. He crawls around on the ground, probably got a shard of metal in his leg and didn't even know it." And after I sent the implant off of all places to Scotland, had a scientist study it there, and he sent back all this technical stuff. I said, "Talk to me in English, not in chemicalese. I don't want to know all the chemistry of it. I want to know exactly what." He said, "It's just a shard of metal you'd find like in a junkyard." That's exactly what I told the brain surgeon and the cardiovascular surgeon. I said, "I want to remove it because if we don't, he'll think we're part of the cabal and we're hiding something." So anyway, he didn't like the results, of course, because everybody wants to have a real implant. And everybody, when I look at hundreds of x-rays every year and find almost none of them, maybe less than 1%, actually have an implant or something that's questionable that I want to do surgically. I've got over 100 cases I could work on right now. 10 I could take to surgery this week if I had the money. It's that simple. 10 of them are ready to go to surgery right now. And they've got remarkable objects in them that, I mean, it's good stuff. But I assure you, they're not chipped by the CIA or whatever.
Okay, so they're not trackers per se, and obviously
No.
discounting all the ones that are just random foreign objects in our bodies through however they got there is irrelevant. Is there a percentage that you would say are alien technology or devices or something in the body?
Well, I like your terminology, alien, because we don't know. I
Hmm.
mean, how do you know that's alien? Now, it's when NIDS, the National Institute for Discovery Science, Bob Bigelow's, when he owned the Skinwalker Ranch, uh, they came to me, called me the next day after the first two surgeries we did, and they said, "I've got four people with PhDs on the phone with me here, and one of them's got two PhDs and an MD." And I said, "Well, what do I owe the honor of this call, Bob?" And he said, "Well," he said, "you seem to be able to find evidence that no one else even knew existed, and you seem to be able to find a lot of it. What do you owe the ability of your skills here?" Of course, I understand that was a trap question. They're asking you to brag and to show your true colors, so to speak. And so I didn't fall for that. I said, "Well, it's not based on any superior intelligence, of course." I said, "If you want to find a donut, go find a cop." They didn't
Yeah,
like that. They didn't laugh at all, and they
I
thought
did.
it was a joke. Well, it wasn't a joke. I'm giving you a great truth. Like, I'm a cop, and I like donuts too. But the fact is that so if you want to find physical evidence of an alien, go find a Native American tracker that's an abductee. You'll find all the evidence you need. I said, I discovered fluorescence in 1992. This substance that shows up on these abductees and contactees. I said, my point is, there's an intuition that's there, and that's how I find some of this stuff. Like I said, it obviously is like many scientific discoveries. It's accidental in that sense of the word. You're looking for something, but you don't know what it is. But you know there's something there. Aliens can't be having interaction with human beings and not leaving a trail. They are. The problem is the trail is in the invisible realm. Well, that's it. Then that means they're superior. No, it means you need to get a better pair of glasses. It's
Yes.
called a
Oh,
FLIR,
FLIR. Yeah, yeah.
or a $500
UV light.
UV light that can
Yeah.
pick up blood on the Shroud of Turin from 2,000 years ago. That's the kind of equipment you need. You need to be able to see where the alien sees. The alien sees, and this is something that's going to be new for your audience. You're not going to read this. They see an infrared, ultraviolet, X-ray, and visible light at the same time.
Is
When
that
they're
through
looking,
technology or biological ability?
I think it's both. Some of the quote unquote gray aliens. Some of them are biomechanical, some of them are mechanical, it appears to be, and some are strictly biological. So somebody's doing a lot of DNA work on this transgenic stuff that we don't know anything about. It's really amazing stuff.
Hmm.
And the question is, who made, hatched, cloned, or manufactured them? Because that's where the truth is. That's the one who knows the whole story, knows what the alien's all about, because the alien doesn't have a clue. They think they come from Banlon, which is a deodorant, or Zoltar, or some planet out there, Zeta Reticuli.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
don't know
that
where
one.
they came from. It's like the movie Blade Runner. The Blade Runners looking for these replicants, these hatched created beings by this corporation, and they were gifted or given a history by their makers. It's a cushion to help them. They really weren't from there. They don't have a real memory. They were given that. The alien doesn't know where they came from or what they were. They were. We have, in rare cases, an alien that, in our opinion, was just hatched and showed up at an abduction. He still had the membrane over his eyes. I mean, it's absolutely amazing stuff. So when I tell people this, it's not stuff I made up. This is Derrel's new. He made this idea up himself and dreamed it up to write a science fiction book. No, not at all. This is based on the best evidence that we have from these remarkable discoveries.
Ignore my dog in the background, by the way. It's probably just my girlfriend got home. He's barking at your stories. I don't know why.
Aliens love to eat dogs. No,
Yeah,
I made that up.
oh no.
No, there was some stupid guy that came on the internet years ago who claimed to be an MD. He wasn't, and he had
Hmm.
pictures of a dead alien, which was fake. And he said it tried to eat my dog.
Oh, get out of it.
Really stupid. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't even believe it. It's
No,
dumb kid.
ignore those idiots. Alien fluorescence. Obviously, you mentioned that. Now, this is actually new to me. Apart from a substance that was on Betty Hill's dress, which I assume is a similar thing. Is that right? And
Well,
what is it?
interesting you used to bring that up. Kathy Martin is a dear friend of mine, and I talked to her a long time ago, and I said, you really should have that dress looked at. She said, well, scientists were looked at. I said, Kathy, aliens see an infrared, ultraviolet, visible light, X-ray at the same time. Your scientists don't.
Hmm.
They looked at the dress with their methods of looking at it, microscopes and this and that and so on, looking for little substances. I said, you need to use UV light on it. And she did. And they found uh, some substances that they found very curious because that shows up in an invisible realm. Doesn't mean it's not there, it just means you can't see it. When the alien looks at your house, they're looking at a full color uh, infrared form of your home, and they can see you in it. They can see the heat signature and you in it. They know exactly where you're at. They don't
Very
need a tracking
predator.
device.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
don't need that. One of our abductees, her name's Linda Taylor. She's now deceased. She came to me many years ago. I had a commercial airline pilot from a major airline. He was taking hypnotherapy course from me, and he was watching me work with her. And she broke down, started crying. And I said, why are you crying, young lady? And she said, they said, if I give you any more information, they're going to get my children next.
Oh, lovely.
And I said, do you really believe that? She said, I don't know. And I said, sweetie, they're just threatening you because they don't, we're getting better information out of you then we have all our abductees, hundreds of them. You have better and more information than all of them. I said, that's why I love to use you in these events. And she said, she kept crying, but you got to show me how to defend myself. I don't want to, they're going to get my kids. And I said, it's highly unlikely if they're not, if your kids aren't on the list, they're not going to come get them. That's just it's a blank threat. It's just not contagious, so to speak. They know who they want to get. They pick them out. They picked out only certain boys in our family, not every boy, but three of them out of our family lineage. No women whatsoever. They know exactly who they're looking for. So anyway, I said, in the interest of science, so to speak, I'd rather not do that because this is good, solid evidence. This is good stuff. And in the interest of humanity, I have to do that because I can't leave you unprotected without any help whatsoever. I'm between a rock and a hard place here. Thanks for putting me there. So I worked with her and developed on a technique that I developed some time ago. And hypnosis is, we'll use that word because we don't have a better word for it right now. My techniques are not all hypnosis. They're just not. They're things I developed because the alien uses some of these things. And not only are they effective on us, you might be fascinated to hear this, they're also effective on the alien. So what I did was train her in a particular technique of how to defend herself.
Okay.
And about a month later, they came in and they got her, as they always do. She's laying there. She rolls her head over. That's all she can do is move her neck a little bit. And she tells me what time it is because I can see the clock. She said, they're here. Oh my God, they're here. Here he comes again. And I said, okay. And then the program started instantly when he got near. He got within 3 or 4 feet of her and he realized something's wrong. He knew that. And she commanded him to come forth, come closer. And he was shaking and he kept coming closer, come forth. He got closer and closer. She reached up and grabbed his eye cover and tore it off. Because I've known since I was 4 years old that that's not his eye.
It's just a lens.
It's a cover. It's a lens. It's a cover. She tore his eye cover off. Unfortunately, it's hanging there. She tore it half off. She's not a real strong woman at all. And she said, and I said, tell me what's underneath the eye. And I have a beautiful drawing of that. And she described a red stipple screen with 6 little white lines running back and forth across the red stipple screen. Fascinating stuff to know.
A screen and not an eye.
Thank you.
Whoa. Tells you all you need to know, doesn't it?
We have 1 of 3 different flavors there. And now the next time they came again, now I'll show you how dumb they are. Same guy comes back about 2 months later. And she says, come closer. And he's shaking. He remembers the last event. This time she tears the whole eye cover off. And she grabs the alien, holds on to him so he can't get away. She says, but I'm not very strong. I said, sweetie, I'm going to install my strength in you. I'm a 4th-degree black belt in the martial arts. I have 2 instructorships in scuba diving. I teach all kinds of things about physicalness, and I think I can help you. And she held him. He couldn't get away. She tears his eye cover completely off, got it in her hand, squeezed. He's shaking, and there are other entities in the room, and they come running over, and they get him out of her arm, and one gets on each finger. There are 5 of them, and they get on her finger and take the eye cover because they didn't want me to get it. Why did they ask the question? Why did you want that eye cover, Derrel? I said, I want Freddy Krueger's hat. If I can get his hat through the dream, I know Freddy Krueger's real. You would say he may or may not be real, but if I get his hat or his eye cover, so to speak, then we may have a phenomena here that's provable.
Right, now, knowing that you did that technique for either to gather evidence, be it a visual evidence or physical in terms of the cover, was she punished for that?
She was. In the sense we're going to get your kids and woe is you and all that. But the wonderful thing about her after that is they left her alone.
Which
But
is
they threatened
amazing.
her,
Yeah.
to get her kid. But I mean, who wants to mess with that? You don't
Yeah.
send an idiot, somebody with an 80 IQ, against someone that tore your eye cover off twice. What might she tear off next? I
Well,
mean,
exactly.
there's a possibility she might kill him. I mean,
That that leads
you
me
don't
into
want
this
that to
then,
happen.
right? I've always had this, not struggle, but back and forth with other people I've interviewed, always about the love and light versus the nefarious, right? And I know you err on the nefarious side of things, and I actually do, because I've posed this question no end of times, which is, if they know everything about us as people, they'll know that we do not like to be violated, especially in our quiet times and our sleep and stuff. It's a no-no. You don't do it. It's against our ethics. They know that, and yet they still do it.
That's true.
That tells you everything you need to know, because it's against your will in your safety time.
That's called abduction.
So why do people keep going on about the love and light when we can see the actual evidence is kind of nefarious?
Okay, remember the statement I told you about the alien uh, when he came in and he made the form of his. I'll use this differently. Uh, he made the form, how shall I say it, of a clown.
Mm-hmm.
He did the clown imagery on me, and so uh, it worked for a lot of people. A lot of people, a lot of abductees I work with, if they see a clown, even like in a show, they'll get scared and run out of the room. I mean, they can't, or small people, little tiny short people, they freak and they run away. They can't figure out, why would I be afraid of a midget or a dwarf? Why would I be afraid of that? But the fact is, these entities they use other screen images too. They use it for children. When little children, there's whole programs. You have to really get into this. When children are used, and they use screen memories of Snap, Crackle, and Pop. These are the three little guys in the cereal,
Mm-hmm.
because they're harmless. They use Casper, the friendly ghost with large black eyes, to come get you, because he's friendly. He takes care of you. He's your friend. All that. And they use, and for children, they also use another one. This one's very disturbing for me, and I think you'll get it. They use furry little animals like a stuffed animal, like this little stuffed animal that's animated, and look at me, look at me, I'm here, I'm your friend, and everything. It's the alien. If you could turn that clown image off, so to speak, you'd see the alien behind it. You don't see a furry little animal. But some people are that the furry little animal sometimes is a program. What program would that be, Derrel? Now, this is something I've never told anybody in public ever before, anywhere, because I don't like people picking on people. Say, well, there's something wrong with those people. No, there's not. It's stuff that happens to people. The furry little image sticks to some people's consciousness in big ways. And later, when they grow up, they start going to furry conventions.
Interesting.
They can't figure out why. One of my abductees, and it's known, it's not a secret, not only went to the furry conventions, but I'm not saying all furries I'm not saying anything, and I don't want anybody picking on anybody. It's not that. But she became a transgender. She wants to go to a boy. I'm telling you, some of these programs, I'm not saying all of them. If you're an adult and you want to be a transgender, that's your business, and nobody should be picking on you for it. So we're not doing that. We're not. I'm not. It's not prejudice or in any way. But what I'm saying, that's a choice. But when you are a child, just a child, you don't need to be having those type choices, because something else is going on. It's called sexual dysphoria in some respects, and people will. You need to be old enough to make that decision. You don't need to be making, and a doctor doesn't need to be behind you with a surgical knife saying, "Yeah, I need to carve up on you so I can make you into something else."
Yeah,
That
I
you don't need
agree.
to be doing that to children, in my opinion. So but these are screen memories, and some of the screen memories take huge effect on people. The clown one, my daughter-in-law is so affected by the clown memory that if she sees one 50 yards away, she'll start screaming and go into hysterics. I mean, it's profound on her, not on me, but I don't like it because I remember what it was. I know who's behind that, so to speak.
Mm.
But the weird thing about the screen memories is there are all kinds of ones that are used. Uh, and the ones that some as you get older, they'll use different screens. For instance, one young man said I was in an abduction and I didn't know it. I'm standing there looking at my mom washing dishes, my dog laying next to my dad as he's reading his newspaper like he always does. And he said, I realize there's something wrong with this picture. You always question these weird dreams you have, question them and interfere with them because it may not be a dream. And he shook his head, and finally saw three aliens standing where his dad was, where the dog was, and where his mom was. And they asked him, how did you know that something was wrong with that imagery? He said, my dog's been dead for 3 months.
That's awful that the dog's died.
Aliens make mistakes.
Yeah, dumb.
They don't always get their information correct.
But that's sly, and it backs up what we said, though. It's sly, it's horrible, which tells me that the underlying plan behind it is nefarious, because that opening gambit seems nefarious.
Okay, I'll tell you one last thing,
Mm-hmm.
one big one, because it goes to the big question: who's in charge?
Yes, the big cheese. Who is that?
The big one, yeah. I mean, if the alien's not in charge, who is? Well, the ones who made, hatched, cloned, or manufactured them, whoever gave the order. It's like when you see TV shows in the U.S. of the mafia. The mafia, the Godfather, so to speak. He didn't tell you, the lieutenant, to go out and kill somebody. He said, make him an offer he can't refuse. You can't take him to court and prosecute him for anything. He didn't tell you to kill or do anything to anybody. Next day, you find a $7 million horse head laying in the bed with you.
Yeah.
But the lieutenant knows exactly what to do. You know what to do. So the question is, who gives the shots? And the only way I can answer that in a truthful sense, I mean, I can guess, or evidence shows who they are, even through ancient documents that it hints at who they may be. But I'll give you a three-dimensional live testimony. Okay. Because in my last event at age 17, 5 of them showed up, and they weren't the aliens. My dad and mom slept in the next room. They never heard a thing. I heard it very easily because whoever it was didn't knock on the door. They didn't float through the wall. They kicked my door in on my. We were quite poor.
Okay.
And we lived in an army barracks that had been remodeled into a house. We still had the old square army locks on the doors. I mean, they're old square locks. Anybody knows barracks, you know what I'm talking about, in the 60s and 70s. So that lock was on the door. They kicked the door so hard, it broke the lock off and it landed on the floor. Do you think it might wake me up? I'm sitting up in the bed with eyes that big around, like, whoa. And my sister never woke up. My parents nobody woke up because they do what I call nuking you. A person's husband, wife, she can be taken and you not be taken. You may even have your eyes open and see them, but you can't move. Or you won't know, or they'll tell you you won't remember, and you often won't remember that. Anyway, the door was kicked open, and by the time it got open, I sat up in the bed just stunned at what's going on. 2 of the beings grabbed me by the back of the neck and the arms on each side and threw me to the floor and placed my head on the linoleum floor, which is quite cold. And 2 other beings showed up beside them. And then another being showed up. And I assure you, these are not aliens. They're not even close. And I always get people that say this. Oh, yeah, me too. I had the same experience. Really? Well, why don't you just draw them for me, or why don't you describe them in detail? Well, they were long white hair, long white robes, wearing, and they sit at the council of the wise of the alien council, the intergalactic. I said, "You're so full of it. You make me sick. You don't know
Don't
the
hold back
first
or
thing.
anything, Derrel.
You don't know the first thing about nothing." I said, I only met 8 people in my entire life that met one of these entities. That one ended up with grand mal epilepsy. The other one's is life, which is my son, was pretty much destroyed. I'm telling you, they're not aliens. And when they come for you, you're in a lot of trouble.
Well, it begs the question I have to ask: what are they then, if not an alien?
Well, I'll tell you, but there'll be some people who will say, "Well, I disagree." It doesn't matter to me. I know what I saw,
Sure.
and I know enough about ancient cultures and ancient histories from Sumerian, Warkan, biblical, different cultures. I went to India just to study some of this stuff. I mean, not only to do an implant study, but I went anyway. In my opinion, the short version, in my opinion, when you look at old documents, Mahabharata, I don't care what it is, Sumerian documents, biblical documents, you have to look at all of them, and you have to figure out what's mythical, what's mythological, what's screen memoried, and what's not. Who are the real characters there? You see Inky and Inley. Inky walking around with a lion under his arm in the sculptures. The people are real small in front of him. He's a giant. He's got a lion under his arm. That's a real story. He actually did that. He was a giant. Inky and Inley are giants, and they are giants. And if you study, again, go into the ancient histories documents and biblical, ancient Hebrew, and so on, and so on, and study these things, and take the religion off of it as best you can, and just look at the documents, you realize, oh my gosh, the giants are a result of interbreeding between angelic beings who fell from heaven, because even Sitchin says, these are the gods that came down from the heavens. That's not what it says in the Hebrew. And when he says, well, that's what I translated, I went out and got one of the finest, in my opinion, Dr. Mike Heiser, scholars who speaks Hebrew, Ugartic, and Sumerian. And he says, you don't know what you're talking about. That's not what it says. It says from the heaven, they got kicked out. They got kicked out of heaven. Sorry, that's, what you're saying. You're making a narrative that sells good in the UFO. You're acting like my Native American friend. From the stars they came down. No, they came from somewhere else. And it happened a different way. You have to take the culturism off of it and look at it for real. Giants are a result of an aberration between fallen angelics interbreeding with mankind. That's the ancient history of it. The Nephilim, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And people say, well, you believe in all that stuff. I said, listen, look at me. Do I look like a guy that likes to sit around and make up stories or read stories and buy into them because there's no evidence? No. I said, I've been looking for giant evidence for 30 years, and I finally found it. The giants of the Bible they're actually accurate. I said,
They're
my point
behind
to
it
you,
all. They're making the models.
we got the DNA. It's available.
Awesome.
My point is that biblical story is accurate. And I don't care what people think. It doesn't make any difference to me. The beings that came in my room are accurate. They are the fallen ones.
What is then?
They are
That
super
begs the
beings.
question: what's the purpose of messing around with
very
us?
good, very good. Okay, I have to give a metaphor here to hopefully
Okay.
it'll make things a little easier. If you had a favorite bar, you're the big shot of the whole town, of all of Houston, and you're a tough guy. You're as the old song says, Leroy Brown. You're the biggest, toughest guy in town, and you carry a razor in your shoe and a 32 caliber and all that. And you're 6'6", and everybody thinks, wow, you're it. and you get kicked out of the bar, and you're not allowed to go back ever again. Let's call the bar Planet Earth.
Okay.
You do something really bad, and God Almighty decides, I'm going to limit your access here. I'm going to clip your wings a bit. And you say, well, then I'll just get even. And the next thing you say, now notice in the lineup of the aliens, I talked about the Chevette and the Corvette Stingray. There's one being there that is listed with the alien that isn't the alien. And he's very real. He's a reptile.
Okay.
He's not the alien. If you ever see him on the craft, you will absolutely find what, even in India, we found this to be true. He is in charge, and nobody better get in his way. They're very sexual. They're very, again, goes back to their sires. It goes back to, and people say, well, you're just trying to make it biblical. I said, no, you're missing the whole point. Don't be dumb. Don't be, how should I use the Scottish term? Don't be daft. Don't be stupid.
Bloody
here.
Stupid.
Yeah, there you go. Bloody stupid. There you go. I said, somebody challenged me that in a conference, and I said, okay, all right. I said, you want to play hardball? Let's play hardball. Let's go to the third chapter of Genesis. That's Adam and Eve standing there. Adam's probably having a sleep, have to spend some time with Eve, and all of a sudden she's over by this tree with this strange looking fruit, and she sees the serpent. Well, it's a snake. I said, no, that's what you think it said. In the ancient Hebrew, there's a triple entendre for what she saw and was talking to her. The first was a serpent form. They had legs, a reptile, in other words, talking to her, outsmarting her. What do you think these beings do in abduction scenarios? You're not like them. You're not smart as they are, and they can do anything they want to you, and there's nothing. First thing he does is divide her from her husband. Second thing he does, divide her from God. No, he said, if you eat that fruit, you do what we tell you to do, you're going to be like us. You'll be like gods. You'll be better and bigger, and they're deceiving you. Really? I said, that was a reptile. The first reptile mentioned in ancient scripture in the Bible is in the Garden of Eden. I said, now that's kind of curious. And he gets cursed as a result for his little actions. As for triple entendre, one is the description of him as a snake, the serpent, and a dragon is the second illustration. And the third entendre is the shining one, which if you go to the other ancient text, a couple thousand years ago, it would use the term Lucifer.
Okay.
That's in the third chapter of Genesis.
I'll put it like this then, Derrel. Is it a truth thing that it's an angelic, demonic, spiritual war going on somewhere behind the scenes, and we're part of that?
I think that's a generic good, but to me that's too broad a cloth to throw.
Okay.
I'm a Christian, but I did not approach the UFO phenomena from that approach at all. I never used that. It's circular. It's finally come back to that. And when I was 17, it came back very crystal clear in the form of 5 beings that came into my room, and they weren't there to visit. They weren't there to abduct. They weren't there to say hello. They were there to solve a problem.
And did they solve that problem?
Well, I'm still alive, so I guess they didn't.
Which then makes you question, what power do they really have if they're amazing beings and they didn't stop you? Was that your power of your will?
It's like getting kicked. No, it's no. I had no power, physical power above them, beyond, or anything. I was just a punk kid, 17 years old, with a black belt that didn't have any, not a prayer, not a chance against them, so to speak. Anyway, I've never described the beings, never told anything about it because it's none of anybody's business. It's very personal. And the most important thing that I can say, that I'm an eyewitness to the fact that that these beings are that hatch, clone, made, manufactured the alien have their own agenda. And a biblical scholar came to me one time and said, and he said, I need to understand why the UFO people see things differently than we do. They see these as aliens from other worlds, other dimensions, or whatever the five primary models are. He said, and we as Christians see it this particular way, something demonic or whatever. He said, I can't, for the life of me, I can't put this together, and I need your help. Now, that's an amazing statement for a scholar who speaks several languages to ask, because he studied everything you can imagine out there. He said, you have a bigger cosmology than I do. And I said, only because it's real. The cosmology you have is limited because there are things out there you're not supposed to know about. And unfortunately, I've met some of them. And I'm telling you that this thing is bigger than you imagine. It has been involved in history since the beginning, and it will be into the end, whatever that may be. I said, I said, you are right in the statement that the fallen beings, the Elohim is what they're referred to. I call them the Eloi, the fallen ones. I call them the Eloi. The Elohim are literally the sons of God. They are the angelics and others. I said, my point is that there is a huge angst between the Almighty and the Lucifer, if you want to call him that Satan or Satan, depends on where you come from. I said his interest in this phenomenon, in whatever he's doing all through history, Alien is only the last chapter here. One of the first chapters was a interbreeding with human beings to produce giants upon the earth to take over the earth. That didn't work out. They hoped it would, but it didn't. You get my point, is that the idea was to create a different being than you.
Yes. And that's what
and
the hype is.
Now they've got 7 of them, so to speak,
okay.
that are look different than us. But the question is, the big question we really need to be asking is not just who are the big guys out there, because not a whole lot you're going to do about that. But there is a question that you can ask that is useful. A radio guy came to me one time and said, at Roswell, he says, I'm on your side. I want to interview you. I said, I don't really want any more interviews. He said, but I'm on your side. I said, I don't have a side. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, I mean, I don't like what they're doing. I said, well, so what? I said, my point is, if I knew the big answer, and if I told you what it was, if I knew it and told you anyway, what do you think you're going to do about it?
Jack. Yeah.
You're going to do what the American Indians did against the Portuguese when they showed up. You're going to be assimilated, slaved, or annihilated. But you're not going to do anything because you don't have the ability. I said, first of all, you'd have to be in line with God, so to speak, because the only other choice is them or their fallen ways. So you're kind of in dead water, dead meat, so to speak.
Well, here's the thing, Derrel, right? Your friend, your religious friend, had said you're not supposed to know. Does that mean, actually, you got a glimpse, and others like you and have these experiences got a glimpse behind the curtain, but actually we're best off not knowing about it because we can't do anything about what's behind the curtain anyway?
The big question, the big issue, and I'm not avoiding here. I'm going to hopefully make that very clear for those who have a very sincere interest to figure this out. If there's this difference between good and evil, and I think there is, and the question isn't, I want to figure out who the fallen angels are so I can go take my big club and beat them on the head or something. You're not going to do that. Just forget that. You're not going to beat anybody up like that. The only authority you may have would be in someone like Jesus Christ, and then you're going to have to figure out how to do better than what you've been doing. Sitting in church on Sunday morning, it's not going to be enough. That ain't going to be it. So the question one, in my opinion, should be asking is, go back to the mass abduction where the big guys, two big guys are sitting in the big chairs.
Hmm.
There are three things they wanted to know I didn't get to tell you about that may make some sense now that I've told you the end of the story.
Okay.
Three questions. They looked at Dale and they produced a holographic image of a human brain right next to his head. And the big guy said, point to the human soul. He didn't know where it was. In the other room where this lady is at, the one I programmed, they produced an image on a screen. She said, I call it a computer because I don't know what it was. I don't know what that thing was. She said, I saw a human brain. Now, these people never got to talk to each other. I never let any of the 8 witnesses talk to each other at all before I interviewed them totally. Never would let them even call it anything. Anyway, she was shown a human brain, and that big guy, the mid-level management guy, between the alien and the fallen one, so to speak, asked her the question, where is the human spirit? Point to it. Where is it located? So that's the hint. Now I'll give you the crown jewel here. When people say, oh, they're from Zeta Reticuli, they're from this planet, they're from that planet. I said, sweetie, I have film footage and even photographs of their craft, hundreds of miles long. Forget the disc you saw on TV. Anybody that has craft that huge don't need a planet, and I'm sure don't have a planet. They don't need a planet. I said, my point to you, you can move your so-called modular planet anywhere you wanted pretty quickly, wherever you wanted it. I said, and these are film footages from NASA, believe it or not, from a NASA engineer who let the cat out of the bag. I
Nice.
said, I have three NASA engineers that are my abductees. NASA engineers. I can tell you some stories about NASA, straighten your hair.
Mm.
That's my point is I don't tell them because if I do, those people will get fired, maybe in prison, and are never going to work anywhere in that industry at all, ever. It's never going to happen. I will never breach that agreement. So here's the big one. As I told this lady who said that she swears they told me they were from wherever. And I said, sweetie, why do you believe entities that lie, create subterfuge, and won't tell you the truth when you ask them? Why would you believe them when they finally tell you, I'm from planet Zoltar or whatever? I said, the fact is, someone has come a long, long way to get what you have. Your scientists have told you for years that you're no more than pond scum. You're barely big enough to crawl out of the water of evolution. I said, what I'm trying to tell you, there's an ancient statement that says you were created wonderfully. And that's what the war's about. Somebody would like to have what you have without you in it.
Our
And
soul.
that has not been done yet.
Mm.
And the last thing in the mass abduction that was said, another thing was that was told to Dale. The guy in the big chair asked him a question about military intelligence. Now that was very telling to me because I'm ex-intelligentsia. So what does that mean? It means that they're interested in our intelligentsia, and you see them over our nuclear aircraft carriers and things like that right now. I promise you, they're very interested, and they do not like your nukes because that would ruin the whole plan if things went bad and you all got in a big nuclear war and wasted the whole thing. So they're worried about stuff like that. They are. I said, my point is that whatever it is that they're looking for, they've not been able to isolate from you without you being dead. They don't want cadavers. those are not of really any value. Whatever it is they're doing, they would kind of like for you not to be involved, but not to be dead, but not to be present. And I hadn't figured out how to do that yet. I said that seems to be the big one behind what they're doing. And to answer your question on the fallen angel thing, think of if you're going to put it in a hierarchy, think of God, angelic beings, and then fallen the ones who left, who decided to go boogie and do their own thing, and came here because this is the hot spot. This is where the best DNA is at. This is where you're at. They didn't come along the way to visit planet Earth because they wanted to look at the water. They wanted to look at the mountains. There are plenty of those all over the universe, I'm sure. They came here because there's no one else like you anywhere in the universe. You are unique. If that ancient statement is true, you are unique, and somebody understands that far better than you do. And you might want to explore that a little bit. So my statement to all of the audience that has an interest in this, those who don't, hey, just turn the thing off and forget it. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
You'll be left in the dark. But the point is that when the giants were all finally killed off, there's an ancient statement in the book of Isaiah, of all things, that says the Raphim. That means, it says in English says the dead, but the Hebrew word it means the fallen one, the giants,
Okay.
the giants who fell. It said they will not rise in the resurrection. Well, what does that mean? Well, that's an interesting term, but the important thing about that term is it means that they're not going to rise in the resurrection. They didn't go to heaven or hell or wherever. They're still here. So what does that mean? And I've told people this who go to seances and things like that. I said, you go to seances, you like UFO people asking the wrong questions. If you ask the right questions at a seance, you'll ruin it. Because whoever's running that show is not the guy you think it is. And if you ask the right questions, usually he ends up thrown into an altered state that looks like epilepsy, basically, whenever you start messing with some of these people, because the wrong guy is running that show, just like the alien problem. And the alien problem down here, so the demonics are not aliens, is my point. Demonics are, in fact, the fallen ones. They're still them. They seek to do the same thing they always did before. They're depraved. They're very sexual. They I've only seen 2 actual possessions in my entire life. There are people who say all kinds of stuff, and I just don't buy into it. I like to be able to verify what I'm talking about. One of them was in Korea, and one of them was in the U.S. And they are profoundly not mental illness. There's another entity inside that person looking out at you, and they know everything about you when they're looking at you. They know exactly what's going to. It's a remarkable circumstance. They are. You can use the appropriate Christian terminology to get rid of the problem, if in fact you are redeemed. If you're not, then all you're doing is quoting scriptures and things, hoping that that biblical scriptures are some kind of an amulet or something you can use. Not likely that's going to be effective. So my point is that's another level of defense if a demonic's involved. But the aliens are not demonic.
Okay.
But aliens can be used by them. And I'll give you one last example.
Sure.
I usually bring what I call a tender with me to a hypnosis session where I'm working with someone. This lady asked me to work with her. I've known her for many, many years. And now she's dragging an oxygen bottle behind her. She's old and she's about ready to die. And this was in 1989. And she said, Derrel, I want you to work with me in hypnosis. I said, sweetie, I said, you're a contactee. You believe you're Johnny Appleseed, and they told you specifically, tell all these people these new age things, and they're all true. And you've done that all your life. And what do you need me to it's likely it's going to be contradictory. And she said, I want to know the truth. I have to know I'm going to die. I want to know. And I said, uh, I've known you for years and I want to help you. I'm just warning you, this might not be pleasant. She said, do it anyway. That's okay. So I've got this engineer, he's an electronic engineer, he's a physicist, and he's sitting there watching. He's never seen me work with anybody. And he sees her telling her story, the alien, you're Johnny Appleseed and you're chosen by us to tell all these people all these wonderful things about us. We're going to save the planet, fix the ozone hole. We're here to upgrade man's DNA and all these wonderful stories, none of which have happened. Not one. You didn't fix the ozone hole. You didn't fix planet Earth. You didn't change our DNA. You didn't do anything. If anything, you're downgrading it. So anyway, so I worked with her and I do everything I can not to lead her. I want her to, if there's anything planned out, I want her to find out by herself. So anyway, I said, so she said, the blue man is the one. Interesting, isn't it interesting? The blue man shows up. This is in the movie Avatar. They asked the guy who made the movie Avatar, why do you use these tall blue people? He said, because that's the ones I saw in my dreams.
Yes, that's right.
Interesting. They also show up in Hinduism, one of the gods in Hinduism. Yeah, you think of that. So anyway, you put all the stuff together and it makes a ton of sense. But you have to get rid of the religion of it, so to speak, and look for the real evidence. So I said, what is the blue man? What's he like? She described him and everything. And finally, I start asking questions that she doesn't have the answers to. She says, he never told me that. I said, well, ask him. Is he there? She says, oh my God, here's the blue man. He says, just like a seance. My child, why do you question me? Why are you asking these things? You must believe that this is what I've told you all these years is true. And I said, is he listening? She said, yes, he is. I said, ask him the following questions. And I asked her these questions and I've never seen him get angry like that. Why is he? He's always so kind and happy. And he left. He's gone. What? Why is he acting this way? I've never seen him act this way before. And I said, sweetie, why do you think that is? She said, he got mad when you asked those questions. And I said, why do you think that is? Obviously, he's hiding something. I said, what do you think he's hiding? She said, I'm really not Johnny Appleseed. I'm just parroting stuff he's been telling me to tell people my whole entire life since I was 6 years old. And I've been doing his bidding. And now I find out the blue man's not really who he says he is. And I said, well, that's up to you. Anyway, while that's going on, the engineer that's with me is freaking out completely. He said, oh my God, they're here. I said, he's just using her. And he said, I've seen this before. It's rare, but it happens. Sometimes they'll use the alien. Alien will become the avatar and they'll speak through the alien and they have incredible knowledge. Really? When that alien's only got the IQ of 80 or 90 years, 80 IQ, and now he has this profound knowledge, who do you think's talking? It's not the gray alien. I promise you it's someone else.
I know, and this thing is too big to discuss in its entirety. Like, I know you know that. But before we get to the Koit zone, I do want to ask you quickly, because there's so much I want to cover. We had so many questions, but we didn't get to them all, but that's fine. I want to talk to you about animals, actually, because this is the you side of you, not your work side of you. So I saw on your Facebook page, because I was looking around for what I could ask you and stuff, loads of photographs with you with what we would class as exotic animals, but just animals, like wolves, tigers, snakes, you massive pythons by the looks of it. What is the story there?
Well, one of the things we found about abductees and contactees is animals have an affinity toward them. One of the questions on my questionnaire for abductees and contactees is the following. Do animals like you? or not like you? And they'll always say, people always answer, I love animals. I said, I didn't ask you that. I don't care what you think about animals. Everybody loves animals. Do animals have an affinity for you? And those are the answers I really want, because that's the real question. And you have to get to the real stuff, or you'll miss it. I've rescued a lot of animals all my life, and first of all, let me the UFO part of it.
Sure.
The animals either are terrified of you, or they have an affinity for you that doesn't work. Case in point, we went to an exotic animal park, which had a little baby rhino, a baby giraffe, and all in a circle about 50 feet across. And everybody, oh, look at the baby rhino, look at the baby giraffe. Oh, this is wonderful. They won't get near you because they're wild. And they had, of all things, they had a deer, a white-tailed deer was in it, which was not part of the show. How the deer got in there, it's easy to get in because the wire's about that far apart. You can reach in, it's easy. It could easily crawl through it. But everybody's standing around, oh, they're looking at the rhino. Well, what in the world's that deer doing in there? And it's, of course, wild. It's not going to go near anybody. Everybody thinks, well, it just accidentally got in there and it wants to get out and all that. The deer walks over to my wife, and I are standing there. Deer walks over and sticks his head through the big cable that's there, and puts its head up on and looks directly face to face with me, lays its head and neck on my shoulder, and takes its hooves and begins to touch me like that. It's a female deer, and everybody's looking like, oh, isn't that incredible? And then they start thinking, that's really weird. And then I got up and left. My wife and I left, and I came back later, and it all happened again. And the deer was trying to communicate, whatever that means. I've chased down 3 deer in my lifetime and caught them in front of witnesses, have pictures of me actually holding deer that I caught. I cannot outrun a deer. I promise you I cannot. I am not that athletic. And anyway, my point is that my Native American tribe I came from is the Salagi. Our enemies call us the Cherokee. They still do, actually, in my opinion. The Salagi, it means the principal people. There are 7 clans within the tribes, and one of them is the Deer Clan. And one tribal elder asked me, "What clan do you think you may have been from?" I said, "I don't know. I've chased down 3 deer in my lifetime, and one time a deer chased me down and caught me. I don't know. I'm taking a wild guess here and say the Deer Clan. What do you think?" He said, "I think you're right." And I said, "Huh, boy, aren't you brilliant?" So anyway, we found that the animals either are terrified, don't like in any way, or they absolutely love people. And it's not necessarily all the time. My senior investigator, the one in the mass abduction that the big guy was talking to, he goes to Galveston down by the ocean, stands there, and a crane flies down, a huge crane lands on top of his head. And it won't leave. It won't leave at all. He finally has to go inside the building so the crane will get off his head so he can stay in the building, because it will fly on his head continuously. An engineer from Iran, an abductee, one of 200 engineers that get taken in a mass abduction. I asked him the question, do you have an affinity for animals, or they whatever? And he said, I'm an engineer. I work in the city of Houston, and I go out and sit in the park with a lot of people, and we eat our lunch out there. He said, all these black crackle birds attack my head, the back of my head, where I think there's an implant. He said, it got so bad I can't go outside to eat. I have to stay inside the building because they continually come after me every time I'm out there, not once or twice, all the time. But I've raised tigers, mountain lions, giant pythons, 18 feet long. And the last picture, one of them I probably didn't post because people think it's too weird, is I'm holding a rattlesnake in the desert in New Mexico in front of 2 witnesses, an airline pilot and another martial arts guy. We were at the end of the road in the middle of the desert. It was laying across the road. I got out of the car, walked over to him, looked at him, and he seemed to be very friendly to me. I don't normally walk around picking up rattlesnakes. You'll get bit.
It's
I
not the done
guarantee it's
thing, yeah.
not a smart idea. But like I said, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. So I picked the snake up, and you see me holding him. I've got to look at my picture there. Holding him, he's about 5 foot long, and he's as friendly as he can be. I lay him back down on the ground gently, and my airline pilot, he wanted to be Superman. He's like, I can do that too. He walks over, the snake calls up and strikes at him a number of times, trying to kill him. I mean, it hated him. The third guy in the car never would get out of the car. He said, I'm not getting out of the car with something like that out there, and so on and so on. So we do have these, we've got other, when I was in Israel doing a German magazine hired me to investigate 3 cases of alleged abduction. 2 of them are real. One of them is absolutely 100% fake. And in this particular case, there were 3 abductees in this family: a little girl, a woman, and Shoshana and her daughter, and the other guy who was hanging out with the girl was his girlfriend, but he was also an abductee. He said, "I'm really an abductee." I said, "I didn't say you weren't." He said, "Please come with me to the park," and so I finally did. Now, cats, regular alley cats, as we would call it, wild alley cats, are wild. They're feral. They will not come near anybody in Israel. They are feral to the nth degree. They see you, they run. And he sits out there in the middle of the drive in a parking lot, and these feral cats start coming to him. I've got film of the whole thing, and they all sit around him, and it's weird. I've never seen anything like it. Never. And they're all as feral as they can be. If I walked out there, they'd probably all run away. But with him, they absolutely adored him.
So what is that? What do you
That's
put
a
that
good,
down to?
great question. Okay, the last thing I'll tell you is I have a little form that I have abductees fill out and contactees because I want to know all about them. And I'm very uh, empirical in one sense of the word, and you're very open because I know there's questions that scientists and others are never going to ask us, and we need to be asked. And one of the questions I'd say there's 6 reasons why the alien, in my opinion, picks you up. 6 reasons.
Okay.
There may be 1,000 reasons we don't know, but you're special, you're unique. There's nothing like you anywhere, and they know it. They know that. They also know you're manipulable, and they can get away with anything. In rare cases, even murder, and they have. My point is that the 6 reasons are really important, and I have the abductee fill out the form or contactee and ask them about those 6 areas of your life, if any of them match you at all. And one of my abductees, the second guy we did a surgery on for an implant, he's in overalls and everything. He looks like Grizzly Adams. There ain't nothing special about me. I'm just a redneck living in a. And I said, no. I said, to feed that crap to other people. You're a computer genius. I know it, and you're completely self-taught, and there's nothing like you. I know that. Feed that to everybody else. They'll buy into it. You look like Grizzly Adams. They think you're a redneck, and you don't have a clue. I said, you got people figured out. They don't have a clue where you're at. In fact, he's so brilliant that later we found this out later that the intelligence community contacted him privately because of something he saw on the craft, intertwining Moebius strip within 3 Moebius strips. They took his information and his math, took him to a private location, and, in my opinion, put a bolt type object inside a rail gun, and they developed a rail gun with his mathematical description based on the stuff he found in the craft. That thing shot a bolt clean through a concrete wall, and they found the bolt 12 and a half miles later.
Whoa.
So when I tell you these people Now, I'm not saying they're all geniuses. They're not. Some of our abductees are geniuses. Most of them are average people, carpenters, secretaries, just normal people. And some of them, believe it or not, I can't figure out how they find food. They're about like that gray alien. They don't get it, and that's okay. But the alien's interested in them. It's their genetics they're interested in, and they're following them. So that's the six reasons, the six
Yes.
things. The first two, I put them in three categories. The first one I put in, and people always jump when they hear this. Oh my God, that's me. And first one is spiritual and psychic. They don't care about. Gene Dixon used to be the most famous psychic of the time when I was a kid.
Okay.
They don't care about Gene Dixon. They don't care about Billy Graham. They care about you and your level of that. You don't process data like Gene Dixon and Billy Graham does. So they're not interested in how much you know, or are you a biblical scholar. They don't care about that. Doesn't mean anything. It's that you process that kind of data differently than anybody. Second two, science and technical. You may be able to understand or put things together. One of my abductees built a TV at age 12. Just wanted to do it. So he did. I can go on and on, but my point is these people learn very quickly, or they learn even without being taught or without hardly any information. And nobody figured out how they do all that. I suspect people like Nikola Tesla were people like that.
Yeah, some measure of savant syndrome or whatever you call
there's
it.
There's no question Nikola Tesla was an abductee. No question. I've read his works, and I can spot him for a mile. Third group, people who learn physiological or psychological things without any training or without much training. I fall into that last category. A lady challenged me at a conference in Las Vegas, and Dr. Carla Turner was present when she was alive, of course. And she said, boy, you tore her a new one. And I said, well, she asked for it. And she said, well, prove it, buddy. And I said, she stood up and screamed at right in front of the audience. And I said, okay. I said, I have at the time, I'm a 4th degree black belt. Now I'm 3rd then. I said, I'm a 3rd degree black belt in the martial arts. Lots of people got black belts in the martial arts. So what? You can learn that anywhere. And I said, no, a 3rd degree black belt in Shotokan is equivalent to probably a college degree. It's not something you get by jumping around, leaping around, and screaming and hollering and all that. I said, you don't even know what you're talking about. I said, young lady, I've never had a teacher. Ever. I said, I'm friends with a man named Masato Yama. Are you familiar with him? No. I said, well, you wouldn't because you're not in that field. Masato Yama is a martial arts master, 8th degree black belt, who befriended me when I was a white belt. Now, why would he do that? He wouldn't. He has 180 schools around the world. And he's certainly not interested in somebody that's a nobody. I said, we became friends. I have personal letters from him all this time. I said, my point is that this guy killed full-grown bulls weighing 1,300 pounds and bigger with left and right punches. There's no human on the world that I know of that can do that. This guy's amazing. I said, my point is that he befriended me, and several other masters have as well, not because I'm a master, not because I'm great, not because I'm super. The terms they use are something, you're gifted. I don't know what that means, but they do. I don't know what that means. I defeated 3 masters in my lifetime. And I promise you, I don't have those skills, but I did it anyway. My point is you can do things that don't make any sense to anybody. And when you got hundreds of witnesses watching it, including the master that gets defeated twice, 2 times in a row, it doesn't make any sense. Can I do that every time? No. But the important thing is I did it twice in that one event is a good example. I was promoted from first degree black belt to third degree black belt on the spot. That never happens. You don't jump
Mm.
2 ranks at a time. Never happens. I said, my point simply is this, that there's something about the way we process that's different than other people. That's why Nids was asking me the question. You seem to find evidence no one else knows exists. How are you able to do that? Then they later spent $22,000 just on the study of some of the implants that I discovered and brought back. That doesn't matter. Like I told them, I don't, Bob Bigelow said, you don't seem to be interested. All 18 scientists of ours voted to have your work studied, and we didn't vote on MUFON or anybody to study their stuff. Why did you don't seem to be impressed? He said, they've never done that before. And I said, you're asking the wrong questions. He said, what do you mean? I said, Bob, I think all you guys want to know is the implant extraterrestrial or not? That's a wrong question. I already know it is. I've already been there. I've already done that. I said, you need to be looking at the isotopic ratios of these implants, every element in them. He said, why? I said, because I'm the alien hunter. I hunt them that hunted me and later hunted my son, and are hunting other people. I want to know who they are, what they've done, what they're really up to. I don't care if their material's extraterrestrial. Of course it is. I said, if you look at the isotopic ratios, it'll give you, isotopic ratio is like the phone number of an element, wherever it's at in the universe. Yeah. That tells me where they're mining, where they're at. Would that be kind of important to you? He said, oh.
Yeah, because they're looking at surface, not what's behind, and that's what you've got to go for, the big G's, essentially. So what was the fourth, fifth, and sixth reason?
Well, they were 3 sets of 2. The first 2 were spiritual and psychical. The second one was scientific or technical. And the third group is the psychological or physiological. My wife and I took our NLP master's testing training, and she took copious notes. She must have notes that were that thick, for her testing. I sat there on the floor and was drawing pictures half the time. And the trainer was one of the few people I've ever seen in the world that could, I don't even know the right term to use. She could talk to me, and we're just talking, just perfectly understood each other when she talked. And I would ask questions. What exactly does these terminologies mean? What does that system mean? What is that? What is that? And she said, oh, it doesn't mean anything like that, Derrel. It means this. And then she would speak and translate it to me in crystal clear terms that I understood. I said, oh, that's it? And she said, that's it. I said, oh, okay. Now just continue drawing. And I'm getting my master's without having to do. I have 2 instructorships in scuba diving. Everybody says, well, everybody's got an instructor. Everybody do that. Yes, but I never passed a basic course in scuba.
That's weird, isn't it?
It's weird.
Just jump in, yeah.
It's weird. My point is that people out there in these 6 different areas, most of them don't even know what they can do. There are hints of it in that test that I sent them. So I find out in the test, and then I question them in great degree, and then I find out a lot of neat stuff about them. Most of them don't know. You're created wonderfully. The question is, well, we got a lot of junk DNA in us. Maybe that stuff in you isn't junk.
It's just not turned on yet.
Maybe it's junk because you haven't figured out how to link up to it yet.
Yes, correct.
Somebody did or wants to and are smarter than you are.
And they seem to be doing it because all the people I speak to in this field all seem to say that they're awakened psychically post an abduction event, right?
But the fact is, they already. The question is, which came first, chicken or the egg?
Yes, correct. Are they inherently that, or were they implanted that? Implanted is the wrong term, but you know what I mean.
Most people, the contactees will say, they gave it to me. The abductees will say, probably is already there. I mean,
yeah.
It's just the different points of view.
Correct.
Doesn't
Now,
matter. It's,
circling back to the animals then, just like the martial arts instructors saw something in you and took you under their wing, an animal reference, so to speak, are the animals seeing something in people, hence why they come up to people and have that affinity?
we would have to ask the animal. I don't know.
Yeah, but it seems that way, doesn't it?
Well, last story I'll tell you. I was in the cage with the big tiger, 450-pound Bengal tiger. I got the picture of that you saw, and I'm laying down, and the tiger's got her huge paw on my head, and she's taking possession of me. That's what they do. And anyway, she's laying there. We're just having a good time. And this little girl, about 16 years old, 17 years old, walks up and says, "Oh my God, how'd you get in the cage?" And I said, "Probably with a key." She said, "You own the tiger?" I said, "Sweetie, nobody owns a tiger. You don't own cats. You may own a dog, but you don't own cats. Cats own their masters. That's the way it works. Or they don't even like you. That's it." So she says, "Well, I come out here and feed her every day. You're not here every day." And I sing songs to her. I said, "Quit trying to give attributes of humans to animals." I said, "They don't have them, and they probably don't even like them." "Well, you know what you're talking about. I sing songs to her, and I'm here every day feeding her, and you're only out here." I said, "But I'm in the cage, and you're not." She said, "Well, I want to come in." I said, "She doesn't like you." "Yes, she does. Every day I come over, and she sits here by the cage and sings. I sing songs to her." Now this cage is like 40 feet long. It's a massive cage. The cat leaps off of me when the young girl goes to the front of the cage, way out in the front, leaps in one bound, lands at the front end of the cage and shakes the whole entire thing and roars so loud the girl is paralyzed, stunned, standing there shaking, just shaking. And I said, "That's how they kill you. You never feel any pain.
That's how to set trauma in someone.
You never feel any pain at all. They roar, you're stunned, and then they bite your cervical vertebrae, and you're dead instantly. It's a painless event, you know." I said, "Aren't you glad you're not in here? She doesn't like you. I told you that before. You're not listening to me. You're listening to your emotions." I said, "She'd killed you instantly if you'd have been in this cage. She doesn't like you, and you're never going to be in here. And that's just the way it works." She kept crying and walked off.
I imagine she would, yeah. It's
At least she got to cry.
Yeah.
At least she could still cry.
Yeah, that's true. True. Okay, Derrel, we're now going to enter the Koit zone. Koit zone! So here we go. I'm just going to answer you random questions, okay? So I want to start with this one. What is your favourite food item?
Favorite food item? It's got to be lobster and shrimp.
Lobster and shrimp. That sounds very expensive. For the
It
lobster
is,
side,
and when I see you, you can buy me that, and that's okay. I can live with that. I can deal with steak. I love steaks as well, but I love seafood. I love that.
I'll write down my IOU of food to you when I do finally meet you.
I'll collect the next time I'm there.
Now, I like this question because I wrote it not really knowing everything about you, but what animal resonates with you the most?
Oh, definitely hawk. My native name is Summerhawk, named by Chief Wendell-Chino's grandchildren. When I went to the reservation there in New Mexico, we used to build houses for the natives because builders wouldn't build for them because these people are wards of the state, and if they don't want to pay you, they don't have to. You just lost all your money. So we did that, and Chief Wendell-Chino were personal friends of my dad and myself. I was just a boy at the time. But my native name was Summerhawk, and there's a long story behind all of that. But I've raised hawks, red-tailed hawks. And,
I was going to ask you if you had one land on you, but you obviously have. Yeah,
the whole 9 yards.
Quality. Thank you for that. Do you have a favourite movie?
I do. I have a lot of favorite movies. One of them is Kingdom of Heaven. I like that. I like Blade Runner real well. Because one of my favorites is Dune, because Dune basically describes the alien phenomena without us knowing it.
Are you talking about the David Lynch version or the new version?
No, the old version.
Yeah, good. The correct version. Yeah.
Yeah, the right one.
Yeah. You're the second person to say Kingdom of Heaven to me recently. Somebody else has also said that.
Very good flick. Very good flick.
It is. What is the best smell?
The best smell that I've ever smelled. I could get in trouble here if I don't say this properly. Uh, the one of my favorite smells, I guess, is there. It's a certain perfume, and I like that. But I love smells in the wild, in the way out in the middle of nowhere. I love the smells like that. Um, so I guess there are a lot of them. To me, smell is one of the most important things I look for in the UFO cases because that's a smell that you you can't. Um, okay, when you dream in a real dream, in 99.99999% of the time, you can't smell it. You're dreaming of eating steak. You don't smell the steak. But when you're in a UFO event and you're having an event there, and one of the questions I'll ask you is there any smells that you smell? Weird. No one ever asked me that before. What is that smell? And they will smell. There's certain smells that abductees and contactees smell, and they know immediately once it takes them right back to the event because that's where they smelled it.
Yeah, and I've heard a few of them say they can't get it off them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Get that smell out of
Well,
them.
the smell usually that's on them is the smell of wet, decayed cardboard or wet, decayed leather or a sulfur
Mm.
smell.
Either
And
way,
if
not
you,
good. They don't
yeah,
they don't fit in the best smell category. So, who has the best voice? Is there someone who really stands out to you because of their voice?
yeah, in a woman category, definitely would be Lauren
Lauren
Bacall.
Bacall. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got an absolutely amazing voice, Bogey and Bacall and all that. Uh, James Earl Jones, I like quite well.
Yeah.
I am your father, that sort of thing. He's got a remarkable voice.
Yes, I agree completely. What item is broken in your house that you plan on fixing?
Many things in my house are broken that need to be repaired. My wife reminds me of it continually. One of
Yeah.
them is our a plumbing problem that I've got to fix that I've delayed and delayed and delayed, and I'll have to fix that. And that's the it's part of the sink area. I've
Yeah,
got to
you'll
go
have to
work
do
on
that
that.
soon, else there'll be more marks on your back where the whip lands. You know.
Exactly. That there are many marks there, and there need to be many more for me not fixing the other stuff.
Yeah, god damn it. What TV show are you currently binging?
What TV show am I currently binging? I like to watch uh, movies, the pay for view movies type things. They're really good. Like we watched Far from the Madding Crowd last night, and but I really don't. I usually don't watch. You ready for this? This is going to irritate some people. I don't watch a lot of UFO movies, stuff like
Oh, that's
that,
fair enough.
shows because most of them are not accurate. I get into arguments all the time with UFO top TV people, and they say, "Well, you've got to say this," and I said, "But that's not accurate. It's not true." Well, we need you to say that. No, that's important for your brand. It's not important for me because that's not based on any research that we have. It's not true. I can prove that's not true. And about an hour and a half later, the producers say, "Oh my God, if that's true, we're wrong." I said, "I've been saying that for a half hour, and you can't seem to get it through your thick head."
No.
So I generally like watching stuff that's more. It's got more of a truthful approach to it, and um, I when X File first came out, I didn't want to watch it because I didn't even know what it was. And this psychologist I was working with her support group up in Dallas. She said, I've recorded two of them. You've got to watch this brand new show called X Files." I said, "No, I don't want to." She said, "They stole your stuff. You've got to watch it." And I said, "What are you talking about?" I get on there right off the bat, go, doo, 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 and then all of a sudden this hand in fluorescence shows up on that's my stuff. She said, "I told you they got your stuff. They stole it." And then the movie was on about implants that particular night, and they had, you won't believe this, Mulder is in a travel trailer, and on his wall he's got all these pictures of a UFO. Says, "I want to believe," and all that. But in the middle of there's a big article written that I gave the only Tim Beckley. I gave him permission to print the mass abduction story, and Mulder's got it on his wall. The December 8th, December 11th double mass abduction of Derrel Sims.
I bet that's an honor in a way, though, isn't it?
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But later I got interviewed by the X-Files, and we argued, and finally they said, we're going to send you your interview, which we've never done for anybody, because if there was a Mulder, it would have been you.
Awesome.
Because you're the real deal. Said, we've interviewed Whitley Strieber, and we think he lied. And we interviewed Dr. Roger Lear. We think he lied. And said, you're the only guy that told us the truth about this alien interview that we showed them. They said it's a real alien. He said, you said it's fake. I said, not only is it fake, I know the guy who faked it.
So you kind of know it's a fake then, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, next one. What place do you really want to go to that you've not had a chance to go to yet?
Place I'd like to go to. I've been all around the world, and I've won several countries. I've not been to China. I've not been to Africa, the big continents, big areas. I don't want to go to China because everything you do there is going to be recorded, and they're going to, whatever you got, they're going to have it before you leave. I guarantee you that's coming.
And you have to eat beaks and feet and stuff, and we don't want to do that.
I'm not doing China. So the other one, I would like to go to Africa. One of my favorite movies, by the way, was Out of Africa. I love that, about Isaac Dennison and her life. And so I would love to go to Africa. I don't want to go there to hunt. I don't want to go there to kill animals. I want to go there to test some of my skills and things on some of the animals there.
Awesome. Well, I hope you get a chance. It'd be nice to tick that one off your list, so to speak. Do you have a superstition, or do you do anything repeatedly out of habit?
We do. Abductees do things out of habit. There is something called apps that I call apps. These are apps the alien downloads into you. Everybody's worried about an alien implant. 99% of you don't need to worry about that. 99% of you are never going to have an implant. You do automatically have an app downloaded in you, at least one, and probably several. One of the biggest apps downloaded in every abductee is you will ignore, destroy, or hide your own evidence. I can tell you story after story of people that did have implants that cut them out with a pocket knife and things like that, threw them in the commode and jumped in the commode, tried to get them out before they flushed it, and you will destroy or hide your own evidence. I can ask crowds of people, how many of you think you have an implant? About 30% of the hands will go up of abductees. And how many of you people will go get me an x-ray of your implant? Hands will go down. They will not do it. They will not give you that. The amount of evidence I have is staggering, because it took me 50 years to collect the amount of evidence I have. That's amazing. But it's only a small amount of evidence to what's really there, because they have that app downloaded into them. They do it.
They truly are swines. Last question in the Koit zone before we wrap up. So, if offered a chance to travel one way to a different dimension, would you go?
I already have a round trip. If you're a Christian, you already got your round trip. The fact is that the scripture says that to be absent with the Lord, to be present, to be deceased, dead, is to be absent, to be present with the Lord. And so that's pretty good. The reason I kind of know that is because, and I won't get into it, but I drowned in Lake Travis on a commercial dive, 120 feet down, and it's an extensive story. The problem is you can't come back when you're drowned 120 feet underwater diving by yourself.
True. So there's obviously an ND here.
If you know anything about diving physics, it can't and it couldn't happen. And the Lord Jesus Christ showed up underwater as I'm looking at my dead body floating off into the deep.
Oh, geez.
And I said, I was told certain things I was going to accomplish in life, and I can't do that. We need to fix that. And he's got the most wonderful smile on his face. He's almost laughing at me without upsetting me. Why do you think he's there? if he's raised the dead all through history in his days of his flesh, why do you think he's there if you're dead?
Because something else exists, clearly.
He's going to raise me. And he
Yeah.
did. And that's how I got to the surface, and without any ill effects whatsoever. And I should have had a pneumothorax, blown out rib, your lungs explode, and nitrogen poisoning. There are at least 3 major reasons why I have to be dead. You can't come back from that.
They are wow things, aren't they, those, when you hear those stories? And obviously you lived it, which is a different thing completely.
They said, you had a near-death experience. I said, no, I didn't have a near-death experience. I was dead.
Death. Yeah, I had a death experience. How amazing. How amazing. I have 2 final questions, and then we'll wrap up. So the first of which is, what else do you like to do in your downtime? Any activities or guilty pleasures?
What I like to do during the day? I love to love hanging out with people. Believe it or not, people. I love people. I like people that nobody likes. They said, "Well, they're weird. They're crazy." I said, "Yeah, but they're interesting. They're not like you. You're boring. You know, you don't think outside the box. You don't do anything outside the box. You know, you want to go eat at McDonald's. You know, I like people that like yourself. You personally, Koit, you're out of the box. You're doing your own thing. You're looking. You're searcher. Those are the kind of people I enjoy. I don't, even if they're weird. A lot of abductees I've met are weird because they got really off the wall views and they make up stuff, and I get that. But they kind of don't have any choice. They got nothing else going for them. That's it. So I like people. I really enjoy. I love people. I do.
Awesome.
I love people genuinely.
Well, that's a good answer, though, so thank you very much. The final thing, do you have a project, anything that you're working on currently?
Well, I could tell you, but I'd have to kill myself.
Or me. Or both.
Well, maybe. Anyway, the answer is the CIA answer. It's the old stupid answer everybody gets. You know, well, you have to kill myself, or I have to kill you if I told you. Obviously, we have things we're working on right now that only I know about. No one else will know. And if you thought these things were weird, wait till you see the other stuff. But I guarantee you, it produces results. And like Bud Hopkins told me one day, he said, "Derrel, you know, I get the impression you think you can catch one of these guys." I said, "I think I can." "Well, that's crazy." And I said, "Only to you, Bud, because you're not an alien hunter. You're a guy that goes around. You're like the rest of these guys. You wander around with a notebook and a pad and a pencil and a camera, taking pictures of click. Well, tell me your story." I said, "I hunt the pilots while you're talking to people who may or may not be telling you the truth."
And it's only crazy until it isn't. Someone has to be the pioneer, don't they?
That's right.
Bang on. Right, Derrel, thank you ever so much for your time today. It's really genuinely appreciated. I really enjoyed this conversation, so thank you ever so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
I was delighted to be here, and the proof of that is I've told you things I never told anybody on any interview anywhere ever.
Well, thank you for that honesty, and I really do appreciate it. Anyone listening or watching this, please check out the links in the description to Derrel's sites, etc. Go and catch up on all the wonderful stuff you have missed or not seen, etc. I certainly will be doing that based on a number of things you've told me today, Derrel. So thank you ever so much. Goodbye, and goodbye to everyone, and we will see you on the next episode. Bye-bye. To watch other KoitCast episodes, please click the image top left. To subscribe to my channel, please click the image top right. Please like and share to help KoitCast grow, and most importantly of all, please click the notification bell so you never miss an upload.